I'm looking for challenges in production, in technology, in order to find the contemporary expression of the products that we design. The journey was starting when we were looking for enhancing the light of an LED on a very large surface to make it smooth, to make it pleasant to the eye. When we injected the light into a glass, we discovered this effect of total internal reflection where light remains invisible until it reaches the edge of this glass.
Stefan thought about the potential presentation of the new products he is presenting for the Light and Building for Fibia, and he asked Stahlpark to collaborate on this. For Stahlpark, collaboration is a key word because we are writing about the collaboration between designers and manufacturers and try to really make the special work of both companies or both parties visible.
We're showing the D1 for Wagner. It's a product we launched last year, but it's only since a few weeks really on the market. It was a very heavy, long collaboration with the brand Wagner from Augsburg, also South Germany. And the special thing is it's this kind of bracket that holds these kind of two arms. And the interesting thing, it's keeping the whole thing elastic. You can not only lean it back, and it's not only that it moves the backrest, but it's also like allowing you to move to the side. And this is especially important when it comes to office furniture. When you work, let's say, for a couple of hours at a desk, you're very happy that you have a sort of a micro movement, which is giving your muscles, like, let's say, a continuous training. Let's say the years before, it was like always the goal to support you as much as possible. We found out that after all this support is actually minimizing your movements and makes you weaker. So this is in a way a gym chair. Wagner is researching since more than 20 years on this kind of micro movements, and on the long run it's helping you to prevent disease of your bone structure. For me this was a very, I would say, fundamental criteria for my decision that Wagner is a company that are really convinced what they do. As they do this for so long and tried so many things, something which I very rarely find nowadays in companies. So I'm looking specifically for companies that do not need to reinvent themselves every year. I would rather work with companies that give us 3, 4, 5 years to work on a concept and then we show that. And that is Wagner the case. They're enthusiastic. They sometimes also realize, as we do, that things are more complicated than they appear in the beginning.
My relation to Marches is actually going back to the time I was working in the office of Konstantin many years ago, almost 20 years ago. And many years later we met at the fair and we thought of, Eugenio Perazzo was asking me if I was interested in a complicated project, so to say. And so we started to think about the costume sofa. The costume is a modular sofa system and it has a few very special features. We're trying really to combine a long wish list in one product. So one of the wishes is we wanted to have a sofa that you can dress. Costume is you can replace the cover, you can wash it, and you can put it back onto the sofa. And this is not very easy with sofa because after washing the fabric slightly changed. So traditional sofa with a sewing line, they will look misfit afterwards. And with costume, we've invented a sort of a mechanism that the body eats, so to say, the fabric, and we fix it from underneath and with a rubber. So it always shrinks to fit the body. And that is only possible because we have inside a very intelligent construction from rotation molded polypropylene. And to have this kind of intelligent core also allows us, for instance, to reduce the amount of foam. The synthetic foam is a problem in a way for recycling. It's impossible to recycle it, and if you dispose it, it's environmentally problematic. So with costume, we use for the comfort like pocket springs instead of polyurethane foam. And also what we wanted to have a product that at the end of the life cycle you can separate all the materials without tools. You can just open it, textile, pocket springs, plastic core, that's it. Another great advantage of costume is that it's a sofa system with only one element. So it's always this basic element which you can add next to each other. You can turn the pieces and fit them together. You can add armrest, and you can also remove the armrest and create a solid. Just use the basic units, or you can add another one and create a two-seater or a three-seater.
Me as a young designer, the first thing I had to learn is to make cutlery myself by hand. So it's quite an interesting experience to turn into a craftsman in order to make design. Of course, I think it was a very interesting experience to do a tool by hand. Makes it already, I think it's a very intuitive way to work, not even using the computer, only at the last step, digitalizing it and transforming it into a industrially produced cutlery made in China. I think it is strange to let someone produce cutlery who was actually using chopsticks to eat, but the exhibition was set up in such a way that didn't want to show the whole design process, but rather focus on what's really decisive for each project. We did in the same years, we did pots, we did go through the same trouble. It was, Rosenthal was not a pot manufacturer, but the owner of Rosenthal, which was Wedgwood, they were also buying Allclad, which is an American company, and they bought Spring, which is a Swiss company, and in the end, I landed up dealing with American engineers making a pot and Chinese manufacturers sending me faxes like this. The great thing about producing in China was it was giving Rosenthal a lot of opportunities. For instance, we could work on a piece of storage system using porcelain, using glass, using plastic, using a kind of a mechanism which I discovered when playing with a kind of a piece of concave, convex-shaped plastic and transforming this into an idea for a lid. Of course, since Rosenthal has no experience about using plastic, I was in the situation to experiment with plastic myself in the studio, and I had to build myself our own kind of small injection molding machine, which you can see here, and which worked as well enough in order to convince Rosenthal to invest in this tool for this lid. There was an idea for an orange squeezer, which is like having an alternative mechanism, working as good as an electric one without using electricity, etc., etc. It was actually, this time I was very often in China, it was extremely inspiring. Same time, I did my first furniture project. The furniture company I was working for is Tonnet, the oldest manufacturer of chairs, which is still existing. They produce these kind of things since 180 years. What I think was very interesting that till now, all these chairs were coming from one technology, which was bending wood. This was a very interesting experience because it means with one technology, with one process, you can make a huge family of products which are all somehow naturally connected together. And again, when they asked me to do a chair for them, I did not even get the opportunity to use this bent wood, but they wanted to use a modern, standardized technology which was not even in their own factory, but which was produced in Hungary.
So again, we started in the studio to figure out how to make a chair which looks like a Tonnet product, but which is made in a totally new way. The company had a very good idea. They said we have to make the seat thick enough so we can combine underneath all the legs, you can see it here, and glue it together. And then it was, in a way, a very efficient way to make a furniture, because the legs and the backrest handles are made from the same part, and it's only this kind of particular designed saddle which made a big difference. Another one project of this time was a project for Flöt Otto, another project in China. Flöt Otto was actually copying a seating furniture from Zanotta. They produced this kind of sack in a very cheap way in China. They fitted with beans, and then it was about us to somehow redesign this bean bag and to make it into a proper, more serious furniture. And the idea I had is to connect the inner skin with a kind of a structure. To industrialize this, we invented a kind of a hook which could HF be welded on the inner structure, and when you blow it up, you get a sofa out of it. So for the exhibition, we cut it up to visualize the idea of this product. So it's coming in a small flat pack, kind of cardboard, to Germany, then being filled up with these beans and transformed into a sofa. The same company produced another project from us. It was like a bag, family of bags, using the same textile, the same technology with welding, and make a kind of a family of bags out of it.
In my studio we design all sorts of everyday objects, from bags to cutlery to porcelain. Core of our design thinking in our studio is to heavily go into construction, engineering from a very conceptual point of view as well, and trying to influence and handle as much as possible to come up with an object or with a product that is breathing freedom.
I was trained as a vehicle designer in Pforzheim and then later at the Royal College of Art in London, so I'm a car designer. I started my career in Wolfsburg, in the headquarters of VW. I moved on to Škoda, to the Czech Republic, and now I'm here since many years, here in Potsdam, basically working on future concepts.
I think what makes German design in particular strong is that Germany has been a country of manufacturers. They are successful because they have a very good performance. Like it has been in the camera business like that, and before in the hi-fi. And design is I think, a language that we use to translate ideas into a product or a service.
In general, the German car design is respected worldwide. There is certainly a German design value in German cars. I guess we are very precise, we are very serious during our work. I think we have also the way of splitting. This is work, this is private life.
You have not this kind of one spot where cultural everything is focused, but you have rather a lot of competing kind of mini states, which are in a very I would say fruitful kind of dialogue. All these departments, like from plastic manufacturers to steel manufacturers, tool manufacturers, they're all research on their own, and this is, I think, very unique in Germany. Yeah, I think a Porsche 911 would be a good example for a good design car. I think it always has been managed to let's say, work on the silhouette and without destroying it, and has found a couple of kind of phenotypical expressions during the last 40 years. And some were a success and some not, but I think it's every generation is a surprise until now.
It's a very typical German thing to optimize things. You have a design icon or you have a good function, but you have something successful, and then you keep on optimizing it over decades and until it's perfect.
Basically, we are looking for new freedom in some areas, and that's I think a very crucial thing. That's also something which connects my work probably very much to yours as well.
We are at the border of or we entered already a fascinating period, because You mentioned it, the autonomous driving will change so much, and architecture is changing, behavior is changing, the needs and the dreams of our customers and of people are changing, and we will need to look for the right moment, for the right magic moment to offer the customer or the user. Yeah?
Costume is a modular sofa system reflecting a way of living, as I think is happening around me and myself, people I know, and is very much addressing concerns in terms of sustainability with a very intelligent body and a very stupid cover. Most of the expensive sofas, which are really tailored towards the body, after washing, you can just throw away the cover because it's like changing the shape a little bit and then all the seams, they don't fit anymore. So we came up with a system that allows to dress the core. We have a mechanism to shrink the cover onto the body. It's done with a special channel here. The fabric is really eaten, so to say, by the core. And then we have rubber rings and you tied it on the bottom. And that means you can replace the cover, you can wash it, you can also change the cover after, let's say, it's worn out. Also, we want to make sure that at the end of life, you can separate all the pieces. So you have only like the pure plastic, the pure fabric. So use as little as possible foam because you cannot recycle. We want to get rid of that. Next problem is, if you want the sofa to travel with your life and you change the flat, you need to have a very flexible sofa. So we need to invent a sofa system with very few parts. Because the more parts you need, you probably shift in another room or other flat and then you need a new alphabet because you cannot use the ones that you already have. So this creates extra cost and that probably also makes the life cycle of your product shorter because it's not intelligently reacting to your circumstances. So with Costume, we have only one element and you combine it next to each other, against each other. You can flip it as you turn it, as you can even have it back to back if you want. And then you have as an additional piece the armrest and a poof. And with this, you can make everything. Is giving us designers a new way of interpretation.
Living in Munich, which is a city in Germany, I work with a small team of designers on a center of the city on a former island, which was used to store the wood when it was shipped down the Alps. Of course, after some time, it was not used at this anymore. It was then a wood workshop, and it looked, when we shifted inside, it was looking like this picture, and we were renovating it ourselves and transforming it into our space. I call myself industrial designer, which implicates that I work with industry. And this is, I think, a very particularly interesting aspect because that means our work is not created only by me or by my team. It is a collaboration with someone else. What is a big part of my motivation is to figure out what are the limitations of what's possible nowadays, and in this way to figure out what defines our life now. I had the opportunity to make an exhibition it was just inaugurated 4 weeks ago in Cologne, and it was so far, I think, the most demanding project. It was about to exhibit my experience somehow with the industry the last 15 years. The exhibition was taking place in a space called the MAC in Cologne. It's an old museum. It's built in the 50s on the ruins of an old monastery. It's by an architect called Schwarz. It's a huge space in the entrance, is 3 floors, and from an architectural perspective, it was clear that we need a huge structure which is going in this whole museum, combining all our projects and giving space in a sort of mini cells, where we can exhibit our each individual project. It was clear when I make such an immense architecture in this room, it is becoming a project. So we are asking ourselves, can we use one of our older projects to make this architecture? So there was this idea of using tables and just replacing the short legs with some much longer ones. And this way we made actually an architecture which is like an exhibition underneath tables. So this is a test setup in my studio, which later on also became the image of the exhibition. And this is how the whole thing looked like. You can see that all the floors are connected and giving space to each project in an individual cell. This was possible because Rolf Hey, founder of Hey, and who is also like the producer of this project of us, which is like started as a shelving system, and later on, yeah, it's made for setting up yourself. It has a lot of very intelligent and features. Can be used as a single unit on the wall. It can also be. It's made from aluminum extrusion. It's extremely stable. It can make up to 2 meter wide shelves. And later on came with the feature to add tables to it. And this makes it like the backbone of our exhibition. So this was the final design. And you see my team setting up the exhibition like some few weeks ago in Cologne. The very important fact that we use a project and integrate it in this exhibition project was solving the problem on not only looking back on our work, but also creating a perspective to it. So from a retrospective to a perspective, because we are engaged already in something new. So what you can see is that we built a tower which is going through all the 3 floors, connecting all the projects in one structure. So let me jump back some 15 years. When I was just out of school, I studied in Stuttgart and was working for a couple of years in Konstantin's studio, but just right after my diploma, I founded my studio. The first client we had was Rosenthal, like a German company for doing porcelain, and I had, of course, a factory visit. And the first thing, these slides are showing my first impressions. What I was really quite amazed is to what kind of perfection Rosenthal has driven porcelain manufacturing. I didn't see any kind of people working there. It was all done by robots, super automatized. The quality was really amazingly great. Quite strange that the project they asked me to do was not another porcelain series, but it was rather a cutlery. And Rosenthal has since years not produced cutlery anymore. They have not even their own manufacturing of this. So Herbert Scheller is the head of product development at Rosenthal. He had to explain me how years ago at Rosenthal porcelain was manufactured.
A very, not such a new product. We had actually since about 5 years ongoing working on this chair. It took 5 years because we were trying a new technology to be used in the chair industry. This chair is made from sheet metal, but 3-dimensionally formed, deep drawn process, made like a car. And this technology is not common. That means we had to do a lot of research. We had to look for. Ask a lot of companies to get us a feedback or to work with us, and that's why it took quite some time.
So it was your idea to start with this kind of technology, or did Wilkan come to you and say, hey, we want to make a chair with sheet metal?
No, that's not a starting point. Wilkan came to us or to my studio because they wanted a universal chair fitting to the contemporary context. And we were thinking a lot about, the context itself. Where are we using these products? Is something changing around us? So the first thing that we did is just to try to understand the change in working environment. And I think our conclusion in the end was that we have to come up with, in a way, a domesticated tool. Not to think too much like an office furniture manufacturer, but more like coming from the perspective of a modern product, which is we first have to find a metaphor for actually what we want to do. And I was then sure that we need a modern product, which is you don't see screws. It's an integrated thing. It has a shape that is not falling apart. And this technology of sheet metal, using sheet metal, offers has this incredible strength that it's using the surface to gain stability and not the volume. That means all hollow, and you can hide all these kind of joints and inside. complex but very interesting.
Sure, in 10 years, cars will be so different.
Definitely.
And
definitely.
I think everybody's looking for that also. I think the time is ripe for that.
I can't wait for it. Now with virtual reality, like the process is still the same. We always start with a sketch. Always white piece of paper, always pen. We start with a sketch. We do the computer models, but we are looking at the model in virtual reality, so we see it in an absolute realistic simulation in front of us, in full size, with all the reflections in 3D. We start actually to use drawing softwares, like sketching software, in the virtual room, which enables us to work, for example, very collaborative in a team. So, for example, the interior designer and the exterior designer can work simultaneous, same moment on the same car.
I think the whole conclusiveness in design, I think, is the bottleneck. I think what we are looking for is a design that is telling all the story of the product. So such changing things, I think, gonna be a quite. I think we're gonna standing in front of a very interesting period now. I think digitalization is the big game changer the last 20 years anyway. It creates a kind of I would say even a code or a language that is understood by others, and then you can exchange things faster. And I think nowadays, I think the next level of digitalization will probably involve even the end user much more into the product.
So it's not only the designers and the engineers, it becomes a big crowd. So the team effort is getting even more important. Ideally, the final object is something super simple and self-explaining, although it's a very complex
I agree.
thing.
That's
Whether
actually
it's a car or
our
a
challenge,
phone.
I think. And the same with our job actually. Is, I think hiding complexity or managing complexity is getting more and more important in our job. I think we are at large using still very old icons in our environment, and I think I envy actually the times where you as a designer were able to work in such a diverse way that you do maybe work on a toaster or on a TV and next time on a camera. I think this kind of interdisciplinary kind of way of working has become, it's not the standard anymore.
If I think about perfect shape, a shark is coming to my mind.
How many shark models do you have every year?
Plenty. Sharks are fascinating animals. They, in my eyes, they are perfect.
Not too much marketing inside the shark, right?
So, and they are without any marketing.
No marketing, okay. And a banana is also not a bad example in terms of a good product. Banana, shark, and maybe Richard Zappa's espresso machine, I think is also quite nice. It's really good. I initially didn't know that there was a job like a designer. I was growing up in a family of carpenters. I was trained as a craftsman. I wanted to study architecture. So after school I became a craftsman, and then I did this in Stuttgart. And in Stuttgart there's a school for architecture and industrial design, and I was visiting it and I found out that there's a profession called industrial design that's dealing with all sorts of materials, all sorts of workshops. You could do there aluminium casting, glass blowing, everything. I thought this was the most interesting place I've ever seen. I like to not be reduced to a favorite material. Furniture. It should give you, for the moment you're using a furniture, give you the ability to focus, to forget about the rest and to focus on what you want to do now. I think nowadays it's not so clear anymore if where's the German design, where is the Spanish or Mediterranean design. I think in the last years Europe grew closer together, and it's much more the question, where do you find good design?
Okay. And can you show us very shortly how it's built up?
I mean, there's you have a frame which is this here, which is made from one piece, and we use this is made from one sheet metal, and we use these parts to construct the legs.
Okay, so the legs are completely made out of sheet metal.
Yes, exactly. Actually, it's all made from steel. It's all hollow.
Okay.
And then the forelegs are welded from inside onto the frame with robot, and you don't see actually the welding, but you see here the joints.
Okay.
And that is like in the car industry also the problem that, or the difficult part, to get a very clean transition between the surfaces and a very even kind of a gap.
And now we see this with a plastic shell on top. The prototype I remember 2 years ago was with leather.
Yeah.
What is the future vision of the shell?
I mean, what a decision of Wilcan and of us to show on the Orgatec the very basic version of this chair, like also a version which is very visible, which was in a way the starting point of this product. But what is actually almost ready is the textile version and the leather version, and it's planned to present this in Milan next year.
Okay.
So it's actually quite in a short time. And I think then actually the product really explains what it's made for, to not only have one solution for all the kind of situations, but like you can differentiate the solutions.